Hi, this is Julie, and I'm honored to bring you a final episode in a weekly series I've released this May in honor of Mother's Day and the Mother's Quest Manifesto Challenge I've facilitated in the private group. The other morning, as I searched my intuition for what episode to end the month with, in a flash, I thought about this conversation with my friend Jenjii Hysten. At the 40-minute mark, the discussion, real and vulnerable, in which we talk about not only our differences as women of different races and religions, but also our common humanity as mothers of sons, still stands out as one of the most powerful moments in now over 60 conversations I've recorded. So much has changed since we released that episode. Trump, recently elected at the time of recording, of course, has now been president for several years, and his administration has only deepened the divides and injustices that were already with us. My son Ryan did decide to visit Jenjii and Franklin's ministry, an experience that profoundly touched him and impacted the speech he shared at his bar mitzvah, a beautiful event that Jenjii and Franklin attended with their two sons. All of our boys are now years older, and all deepened their own social awareness in ways both painful and empowering. And Jenjii and I have each stepped into our own activism in different ways, each committing to powerful conversations to build bridges of awareness and understanding. Ones that I've recorded with Mothers Against Police Brutality co-founder Sara Mokuria and with Trayvon Martin's mother, Sybrina Fulton, I'll link in the show notes. Jenjii says that she is still committed to living out loud, the guiding theme you'll hear her talk about, but now she has a much clearer sense of what that really means. She's currently writing a book, and though she and her husband decided to close their ministry, their consulting business is thriving. They've joined another church where they preach, and she says she has learned that her life is her ministry. When we spoke today to catch up, I told Jenjii that sounded to me like one powerful manifesto, and possibly the title of her book. I hope you enjoy this episode, and that these reflections and the conversation that follows may spark you to claim your own manifesto, to reach out to build your own bridges of awareness and connection, and to live your own life out loud. And now, here is the Encore presentation of my conversation with Jenjii Hysten. Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to two high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? In the months leading up to a big milestone birthday, I decided it was time to stop sidelining my dreams and become the hero of my own journey. I knew I didn't want to do it alone, so I created this podcast to learn from other moms further ahead on their quest, so their words of wisdom and lessons learned could help light the way for mine. I created this podcast for myself, but I hope you'll come along with me and find some treasures of your own. Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope that you're all having a great start to your new year. I want to start by thanking all of you who have listened, joined our Facebook group, signed up for updates at the Mother's Quest website, and shared personal reflections with me of the impact the podcast is having on you. I can't tell you how grateful I am that you're listening and how much I appreciate all the ways in which you're encouraging me to continue this work. In this episode, I'm honored to bring you this intimate, inspired conversation with Jenjii Hysten, a mother, coach, and community leader who I deeply admire. I've known Jenjii for over a decade now through my connection with her husband, Franklin. But in recent months, Jenjii's raw and vulnerable sharing about what it's like to be the mother of 2 Black boys and fear for their safety caused me to move past my worry of saying or doing the wrong thing and reach out to her in a whole different way. Our honest conversation about the ways in which we've stepped out of our comfort zones to live out loud and forge connections with one another based on our common humanity as mothers of sons was one of the most powerful moments I've had yet on the Mother's Quest podcast. Jenjii is an advocate, teacher, student, facilitator, and a voice for the voiceless. She was born in Los Angeles, but she says that Oakland raised her. She studied interdisciplinary studies with an emphasis on urban economic development at UC Berkeley, holds a Compass Point Executive Director certificate, and is an ordained minister. In her early 20s, she worked with the Children's Defense Fund for a program called Freedom School and says it saved her life. This is where she learned the beauty of servant leadership, which is one of her core values. As the founder of SOS, Saving Our Sisters, Saving Ourselves, over the course of 10 years, she served hundreds of girls throughout the Bay Area. In her 20-plus years working, Jenjii has served as a program director, executive director, dean of students, curriculum designer, started New Life Ministries with her husband Franklin, and is currently the co-founder and CEO of Hysten Consulting, LLC. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. I was struck by the concept of rhythm and how it can manifest in our lives, our children, our bodies, our communities, and perhaps most importantly, our collective humanity. I hope you'll leave the conversation as I did, inspired to think about the ways in which you can find your rhythm and live out loud in your own epic life. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. Welcome, Jenjii, to the Mother's Quest podcast. I'm really honored to have this conversation with you today.
Hi, Julie. I'm so happy to be on this with you. Thank you.
I wanted to share with those who are listening a little bit about how we came connected, because I feel like the Hysten family and you and Franklin, your husband, I actually met Franklin, who is one of my most favorite people in the world, when he was a college student. And I was just at a graduate school and I was doing a research paper about young people in Oakland who were taking leadership and making a difference. And Franklin was the shining example of a young person who was doing that. Years later, it's been amazing to see all the different ways which our paths have crossed again and again.
Yeah.
I worked together for years at Alternatives in Action, and now he's a partner of mine with a reflection process that we bring to a preschool in Berkeley. Yeah. And now I'm getting to know you in a deeper way as you've said yes to being a member of the Founders Circle for Mother's Quest. Mm-hmm. And I just feel so blessed to know you.
Oh, thank you, Julie. It's been a blessing to know you too. And to know you've known my husband before I ever met him. He's a good guy.
Yeah, and I have memories of being at your wedding,
which
was an incredible day also.
Oh,
how many years have you been married now?
September will be 10 years.
Wow. And you have two amazing boys.
Yes. We have a 7-year-old Isaac, who will be 8 very shortly, and a 6-year-old William.
They are incredible. I absolutely love hearing the stories that you share on Facebook, just about what beautiful kids they are and the thoughts they have, all of their achievements, even at their young age, and how reflective they are as they're going through them.
Julie, I've been blessed to do a lot of amazing things in my life, but the most amazing is definitely raising these little humans.
Absolutely. One of the most incredible experiences I've had in my life.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question that I always begin with.
Okay.
Is hearing a little bit about what your life was like as a child, and in particular, what impact your mother had in shaping who you are today.
This is a great question and a very deep question. So I am from LA originally, and growing up, I had a very challenging childhood. My mother was a single mother that went through a lot of different things. We moved around quite a bit, just trying to survive, being an African-American woman in LA, dealing with a lot of the challenges, having 3 kids. In that, I was able to somehow be able to learn how to maneuver through life, even in the midst of constant challenge. Before I even got to college, I went to between 9 and 10 different schools. And so I was always moving. But the amazing thing is that even in the midst of the challenge that my mother dealt with, and challenges of working and raising kids, as you could imagine, being a single mother, trying to have 3 kids and work and no childcare, there were just so many challenges for her. What she did that was amazing is that I always knew I was loved. I always knew that she faced every challenge because of her love for me. And I'm her only daughter. She has 2 sons. And she always would tell me, you have to be better than me. I don't want to cry, but it's amazing. She's always like, you have to do better than me. And I'm doing the best I can do, and you do better. I knew I was loved. I come from a family of women that are very beautiful. And my mother raised me telling me, your looks will only get you 10 cents to call home. It instilled in us that it's about your heart and it's about your mind and it's about God. That was the path that I was set on at a very young age. It allowed me to get through some very complicated things in life and come out on the other side, not just surviving, but winning. And so my mom was my first hero. She was my first pastor. She was the first person to show me love. She was the first person to show me tears and to show me that the world is not always kind and that it's hard. But in that, she also showed me that you get up. One of the best things my mother ever instilled in me is she used to tell me as a child, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And she embedded that in me so that when I went through hard times, she would be like, pull up. And I was about 30 years old and we were having some challenges in life in the family. And I told her, pull up. And she was like, what? And I said, I actually don't know how not to pull up at this point. And just that one statement kind of threaded through my whole childhood has really molded my character to where I don't know how to not pull up.
This is an amazing story. And I think you've listened to my intro episode to the podcast where I talked about planting seeds and how there was a day when I needed some guidance and my now 4-year-old Jake gave me exactly what I needed. And it turned out I had shared those words and those thoughts with him. I'm reminded of that as you're now sharing how you were able to bring back to your mom, which those seeds that she planted in you.
Yeah. And now, my mother, she lives with us and a lot of the stuff I'm pouring back into her, but then she is also able to see that her suffering paid off and her struggle paid off. And I think as a daughter and as a mother, it's a blessing to me that I'm able to live the way she envisioned me living, even when she couldn't live it. As a parent, that's our greatest desire, is that our kids do better.
Well, you are absolutely doing amazing things. We'll have a chance to get into that. The question I want to ask you first connects to this idea of us living our epic life.
Mm-hmm.
Epic for me and for Mother's Quest has these 2 meanings. One is connoting this idea of being the hero of your journey, the author of your story. And then also EPIC is an acronym mnemonic for the guideposts that I think actually help us live that kind of a life when we're raising our children.
Right.
So we're going to get into each one of those letters and hear how that's showing up for you. But before we do that, I wanted to ask a more general question about your epic life and just get a sense of what do you feel like has been the journey that you've stepped into as a mother and a woman, and what are you on a quest for right now?
As a mother and as a woman, those are great questions. So to kind of back up a little bit, I didn't think I could have children. In being able to have children, I have been very conscious about raising my children and being present with them. And in that, it has really formed me as a woman on another level. I feel like my children have made me a better woman. They have shown me how to get in touch with different parts of myself that I did not know before them. And so the woman I am now at 40 with the 6 and 7-year-old boys is not the woman I was 10, 20 years ago, because they have revolutionized my life. And so in that, when I think about the quest that I'm on now, at this day and this time in my life, and I've contemplated this question, the quest that I am on personally is to live out loud. Is to completely live out loud. And what that means is that as a woman, as a Black woman, as a Christian woman, there's so many different ways that I have tempered myself or have learned how to be who others want me to be, or learned how you code switch and how you move through spaces so people aren't intimidated or that people see you or don't see you. And in the last 5 years of my life, I've just been like, you know what? I'm just going to completely be who I was created to be. I am going to reach into every part of my heart, mind, and spirit and body and try to pull out of myself my greatest self. And so my epic journey right now is to live my dreams, not to just dream them, but to accomplish them to where I have to create new dreams. It is to be present in my body. You know, when you birth kids, a part of you dies and your body changes, things, your heart, your mind changes. And in the process of having those kids and breastfeeding, and my kids are 18 months apart, so for about 4 or 5 years, my body was not my own. And now falling in love with my body in a way that I don't know as a matured woman. And so my epic life consists of taking every single gift I was given from God, every single dream I've ever thought, and not being afraid of it, but moving into it. Because what I believe is that the better me I become, the better life I create for my children.
Ooh, I agree with that 100%. I identify so much with everything you just said.
You know, and all the I's we dot and T's we cross to take care of our kids. Did we feed them? Did we buy the right food? Did we take them to the right place? Did we put them in bed at the right time? Did we get them into the right school? Are they doing their homework on time? What I've come to find in these last few years is if mommy's not okay, none of that matters. And if mommy is not healthy, if mommy is not happy, if mommy is not whole, if mommy is not centered, then all those things don't mean anything because they are strange, but it's as if when they're in our womb, their bodies are moving to our heartbeat and, you know, just the thought of them being in rhythm and in sync with us. But somehow when we birth our babies, the world and things that happen, we forget that our children are still in sync with us.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, you know, are we keeping the right rhythm for ourselves? And so that's my epic life. I am fighting to be better. I also, a few years ago, was diagnosed with diabetes. And in that, I had almost lost my vision. I had some kidney damage. I was on insulin. And the doctor straight up to me said, Jenjii, do you want to live? And I said, I have to raise these kids and I want to live. And at that point, this journey to live out loud birthed itself in a very real way. And so thankfully now I'm not on insulin. I'm not on medication. My diabetes is not perfect, but it's very well controlled. I have my vision back. Everything has reversed. And I now have to keep a rhythm in my life in order to literally live the best life possible in my body.
This is amazing. And I want to hear, when we get to the I in Epic, invested in yourself, I really want to hear how you made that possible and the ways in which you care for yourself. Let's start with the E, which is about engaging mindfully with your children. And as you said so beautifully, when you are centered, when you are grounded, I'd love to hear what you have found is possible and the ways in which you connect meaningfully with your children.
When you're centered and when you're grounded, what I have found is that I can see my kids individually for who they are. When everything is chaotic, when I'm off balance, when I'm struggling and not breathing and not eating right and not sleeping right and the business is too much and, you know, the marriage and all these things, my kids just kind of blur into the storyline. You know, they just become another part of the storyline and another part of the stress or the anxiety. But when I'm centered and balanced, it allows me intentionally to focus on my sons in a way where I study them. You know, I love studying and they have created a classroom for me to be a student in. And in that classroom, I'm studying who they're telling me they are through their words, through their actions, through their dreams, through their mistakes, through their challenges. As I do that, it's kind of like gathering research information. I'm beginning to put together who is Isaac? Like, not who is Isaac that mommy wants him to be, but who is he sent into this earth to be? What is his rhythm? What is his mind? What is his heart? What makes him like me, but what makes him different than me? Who is William? Like, William is a very strong guy. He's 6 years old and he is one of the strongest, funniest little person I've ever met, but he needs to cuddle. He's 6 years old and he has to cuddle. And there are days where he just needs to get up under his father and he just needs to cuddle, cuddle, cuddle. And he doesn't need to be told, you're a big boy, be strong, be a man. He just needs to lay down and cuddle. Mm-hmm. And when he does that, he can get up and he can go fight the world. And so listening to what he needs, and my son Isaac, they're both highly intelligent, but my son Isaac is first grade, second grade, reading at a fourth grade level, excelling in, 5% in the country in math and science. And in that, when my husband and I went to his classroom meeting with his teacher, which we were very nervous as if we were the students, we were scared. It was worse than sitting before a college professor. As we sat there, she told us all the great things he's done academically. And she said, but the thing that is most amazing about this little kid is that he is the most empathetic and wise child I've ever met. And at that moment, we could have cried because that's what matters. And he's able to be that little guy because we slow life down to build him. And when he's weak, we slow life down to put him back together. And as a mom, I am clear that I know my child in a way that you can't write in a story. You can't put an algorithm to it. It makes no sense to anyone else, but it makes sense to me. And the gift and the charge of that with our children is that we then have to really think about how do we guide our children? How do we mold them? And who are we going to be who they need?
Beautiful. So the P in EPIC is passionate and purposeful, and it's making a difference beyond your family.
Yeah. Oh, love it.
I know that you are making an impact in so many different ways. Can you share some of the ways that you feel are most present for you these days?
I've been blessed to do a lot of work that I've been passionate about. But these days specifically, I, Julie, am very clear at this point in my life that I do not do what I am not passionate about. I've gotten to a place in my life where I know that passion and purpose are two of the most important things in life. To live fulfilled, to live happy, to be able to weather the storm. That if you don't have passion and purpose, you almost can't survive some things. And so in this moment in my life, I live and I do what I'm passionate and purposeful. So currently, there's so many different things, but in our family, we have a spirit of servant leadership. I was raised this way as a youth developer, as a community activist, that you lead people by serving people. And so in the Hysten family, we are raising our children to also be servant leaders. That means that we take care of people. That means that we show up for people. That means that we create things for people. And so currently, my husband and I have a consulting company that we're able to do some amazing things around coaching and training another generation of young youth developers, or even just people who are at transformative places in their life or transitions and don't quite know how to move to the next place. And in our company, we're able to literally help people move into that transformative realm of their life. And that work is amazing because it's so personal, that people tell me their most intimate stories. And the fact that people trust me to be able to hear and guide is a place that we serve and lead. The other thing is that currently my husband and I are in ministry, and we are blessed at this point to be leading a young group of millennials. And if you've ever worked with millennials, you know that they are an interesting group of young people that are very peculiar and very passionate. And one of the things I am trying to work on this generation with is something someone told me when I used to play softball. She said, Jenjii, you have a lot of passion, But if passion isn't directed, it burns like a wildfire and it takes everything down as it goes. And so in trying to pass that lesson on is how do you serve? How do you find a cause in your life to fight for? How do you do something that outlives you? How do you live for something greater than you? And you hone in on that thing so much that you actually can see evidence of change. And so passion and purpose for me right now is the heartbeat of my life.
Let's talk about the I and epic invested in yourself, which represents both continuing to learn and grow and challenge yourself, but also that self-care. What are the ways in which you invest in yourself?
Well, I think, Julie, there's 3 things pop up for me. I serve a lot of people. As you know, I work with a lot of people and deal with a lot of people's stories. So one of the first ways, there's 3 specifically I could think of, is I stay rooted in what I believe in spiritually. That I pray every morning before I wake up, Julie. My prayer is, Lord, let me be used today by you. Send me to the right people, the right places, and give me the right words. And then let me be able to let it go. And so that is my daily morning prayer, is that I know that there comes a point where you have to surrender. And I actually try to surrender all the time to something greater than me in order to be able to be present for others. The second part is I love to read. My husband and I, we are readers. I read. I get lost in books, in other people's stories, in biographies, in the Word of God. The Bible is what I study, in self-care books. I love to hear words of wisdom from many different angles, and that feeds me to help me stay grounded. And oftentimes, when I am feeling unbalanced and I pick up the right book, it's kind of like the book found me. I actually get exactly what I need to go to the next moment.
What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm actually reading the Book of Joy, and it is the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And it's a really fun read, but it's really a book that is really focused on how do you find joy in the midst of life, in the midst of trauma, in the midst of what's going on in our world. How do you find compassion? How do you stay humble? So some of the things are staying humble, finding compassion, being balanced. And in this book, as a spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu are 2 of the world's greatest spiritual leaders. And to watch them talk about how you find balance and how you keep joy in the midst of the world happening around you has actually been very, very good for my soul at this point. And so I think everyone should read that book. It's a good read. And it's
What's the name of it again?
It's called The Book of Joy.
Book of Joy. Okay. We'll link that in the show notes.
Oh, great.
What's the third thing?
The third thing is physical health. I take care of my body. So this may sound crazy, okay, Julie? Sometimes I could be a little crazy, though. I actually think getting diabetes saved my life. And I say that because sometimes we don't know how unhealthy we're living. And oftentimes we associate being unhealthy to what we're eating or working out, where we don't realize that stress and lack of sleep are 2 things that also make people sick internally.
And so what have you doing? What are the things that you've found have helped you to manage it?
So there's 4 things. First, I got a book. Back to number 2. Always go back to 1 and 2. So I got a book called Reversing Diabetes. I do not know the author's name, but I'll definitely give it to you.
We'll find it.
Reversing Diabetes. And the book began to tell me at the onset of my illness, I got the book because I needed to understand intellectually what was going on. And in that, it began to talk to you about stress and lack of sleep and eating and physical health. And I had gestational diabetes, Julie, with both of my children.
I remember that.
My family. And as having gestational diabetes, it rolled over into diabetes. And so in this book, I began to look at it as a balance wheel, that most people just associate diabetes with what you're eating, but you don't realize that it's movement, it's sleep, and it's stress. And so I began to look at my life as being a balance wheel. That at any moment, if one of these things are off balance, I don't feel good. If at any moment I can eat well, I could go to the gym, but if I'm too stressed, I can't get it together. So I quit my job and started a business. That's how I handled that stress. It's still stressful, but it was my stress.
Yeah.
And so now I have a personal trainer who is really helping me kind of go to the next level. My goal is that I'll go to the doctor one day and they say I don't have it anymore. So the physical balance is all of us have something we're dealing with. Mine just happens to be diabetes. Some people are dealing with addiction, heart disease, depression. All of us are dealing with something internally as women. And I think sometimes for those of us, who go through life and are being very ambitious and, taking challenges and get up and make things happen and then have kids, that we don't realize throughout the years sometimes that we've let go of our body until our body makes us sick. My thing is diabetes. Someone else's is depression. And the challenge is, how do you find the rhythm in your life? How do you find the rhythm in your body? And so diabetes probably saved my life because it now lets me know when I'm out of sync. It lets me know when my rhythm's off. It lets me know when I need to sleep more, or I need to let go of that contract because it's too stressful. Or, you know what, Jenjii, you actually need to have a salad instead of having a burger, or you need to go get a trainer. And so the diabetes really kind of helps gauge because I don't want to be on meds. And because of that, I have to listen to the rhythm of my body.
Yeah.
And invest in that. Like people buy lipsticks, I buy a trainer.
And I've been following along how you've used bike riding as a outlet for you. Say a little bit about what you've been involved with.
Yeah, that's great. It all started 3 years ago in the doctor's office when he diagnosed me and said that if I don't get it together, I'll be in the hospital. I picked up a magazine and I opened the magazine and it was a women's tour de cure by the American Diabetes Association. And I said, okay, I need to be free. I feel like a prisoner in my body. So I went and bought me a little $79 cheap bike. And I got on the bike, and I had been an athlete growing up. So here's the thing of how we lose sync with our body. For 13, 14 years, I was MVP All-League in volleyball in junior college. And over the course of 20 years of working and serving people, I lost myself. And so I went and I got this bike, and I went straight from my house to my kids' school, which is about 7 miles round trip. And Julie, I would trick myself. I would get on the bike, and I would say, there's no one who could pick up my kids. If I don't get there, no one's going to be able to get my kids from school. And so I would ride there just chanting to myself, like, I got to get my kids. I got to get my kids. And when I got to their school, I would turn around and I would literally then say, I got to get home and get my car to pick up my kids. So then for 2 months, that was my mantra. And I would ride 7 miles until I got to the place where I didn't have to trick myself anymore.
Yeah, you just created that motivation.
Right. And I eventually rode the Tour de Cure Women's Series in Northern California. And the next year I was the chair. And so I've just completed my 3rd year or 2nd year as the chair of the Women's Tour de Cure, where the goal is we are creating an environment and a space where women can ride. It is not competitive. It is for ourselves. Men also ride with us, but the American Diabetes Association is trying to also raise the awareness of women with diabetes or women who care. And I kind of coined a phrase called type strong. The idea of type strong is that whether you are pre-diabetic, diabetic, love someone with diabetes, or takes care of someone with diabetes, we're all type strong. And what that means is that we could beat this.
I'm sure I'll have you on the podcast again and we can do a take 2 on this.
Okay, that would be great.
But this idea of the balance wheel, even for my father, of paying attention to how eating and movement, sleep and stress, how these things feed into how you're feeling, and being just aware and making the adjustments, I think that would be really relevant for him.
And because I have young children, they also make me aware. So sometimes I walk in the house and my son will say, Mommy, are you okay? I say, what's wrong? I say, your face. And they'll let me know when I'm out of sync. So today, I may have a lot of energy to play with them, Julie. But tomorrow, if I don't take care of myself today, I can't hardly get out of bed. And so these are the ways where I know that I have to take care of myself because of my children. They reflect when I'm not feeling well. When I work, I have a hard 4-day work week. I know I have to slow down for 2 days or I will not be able to be emotionally and physically present, because when you have a chronic illness, and for those who hear this will be able to know, when you have a chronic illness, it affects your mind in some ways. And people don't understand. It affects your mind, your ability to comprehend, to manage stress, to manage your family. It affects sounds. And so all those things, like I said earlier, Julie, is if we're not in rhythm in our life, our kids are out of rhythm.
Yeah.
And so for those who are dealing with illnesses or addictions or all these different things, is that we can pay all the bills, we can make sure the kids have food, we can make sure the kids show up to karate practice and go to school. But if mommy is not okay, our babies are not okay.
One of the things that I'm really touched by from that story is the way in which your own children are a support network for you.
Right.
How they can reflect back and how they're also caring for you is a good segue to see an epic, which is connected to a strong support network, so that you're in community on your journey. Who else and where else do you find those connections that support you?
So our first start is I have an amazing husband.
You do.
I hit the lottery, I tell you, on the husband lottery. I tell people I didn't make him a good man. He was a good man when I met him. And so he's very supportive in that. Also, my mother is close with us and our in-law, and she has been an extraordinary support in the context of helping to raise our children. We raise them, but she's grandma, and there's certain things that grandmas give their grandbabies. Interesting enough, the work I do feeds me because I live on passion and on purpose. The work I do feeds me. And so in my career, I meet a lot of people. And there have been some women that we have stuck close, very opposite women. You know, like even Julie, you and I, we have so many differences, but somehow in this work, in this calling, we are more alike than we're unalike. And so over the course of the last 5 years and really rebuilding my life with the kids and after, you know, all the illnesses, I have a great network of women that are very different, and they each, like I meet a different need for them, they meet a different need for me. I do have a best friend who I can call and tell everything to, so that helps, that you know will take it to the grave. And then I go find what I need when I need it. I'm not the person who says, I can do this all on my own. I very much say, I can't do this. And when I say I can't do this, somehow the person who can show me how to do it walks in the door.
I really do believe in signs.
Oh, yeah, me too.
You alluded to that when you opened up the magazine and saw the article about it's called the Tour de
Cure, Women's Tour de Cure in Northern California.
And also trusting that the right people to support you will show up when you need it.
That's right. That's right. And I also feel, Julie, this is just my spiritual beliefs. I feel like if I take care of God's work, he takes care of mine. So in my service to people and my trying to live in these dreams and things that I feel like I'm supposed to fulfill in my life, with every step of the way that I give, that I serve, that I help, it comes back to me, right? The universal principles, right? What you do to others comes back to you. And that all the love that I give out, I get so much love. And that just fills me up to go give more.
Along the line of this conversation of community, I wanted to share more about how you and I have come to be connected more closely in the last few months. And this idea that you were sharing about living out loud resonated with me a lot. I think since my commitment to living my epic life, I've been willing to come out of my comfort zone and do things that in the past I would have just edited myself or stopped myself for fear of doing the wrong thing or sounding the wrong way. And the pivotal moment that got me connected to you more deeply was you had shared this incredibly profound and deeply moving Facebook Live post after one of the recent shootings of a Black man at the hands of a police officer. And you were talking about what it feels like to have Black boys who are your children and a Black husband and brothers and nephews, and just the fear and the trauma of worrying about them every day when they set out from your door, and how you really were calling on your white friends to feel, to imagine feeling the way that you do in order to make a difference. And I was really struck by it. And so I called you and left a message and just said, what can I do? And I just wanted you to know that I heard you. But I was a little worried that I was going to say the wrong thing. And I appreciated so much that you did end up calling me back. But I'm wondering if you could share a little bit of what has happened on your side from this connection that you and I have begun.
I think I'm slowing down to respond because this is such an emotional topic. Your question, what have I done on my side? And I think answering the phone, one, is a big deal. For those of us, as Black women, and I don't want to speak for all Black women, but for myself, is that while we want people to support, sometimes we don't want to explain it. This is the reality that our country is in. And the unfortunate part is where our country may be going is that these things aren't changing anytime soon. And so there are moments where it's like, what do we do? How do we talk about it? And I think one of the things with you, Julie, that has been really interesting is, one, you called. I have lots of white friends. No one else called me. Sometimes people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear the emotion or the rawness or the tension, right? These are tense conversations to have between Black women and white women. These are hard conversations to have, depending on how real people are going to be, but they are also necessary conversations to have. And so answering the phone and listening to your voicemail and calling you back. And Julie, I didn't call you back right away because I needed a couple days to process. And the process was, you have a husband and 2 sons. I have a husband and 2 sons. And our lives are very different because of the color of our skins. And having to wrestle with my own humanity around that not being fair.
Yeah.
That what makes my husband any less important than yours? What makes my sons any less important than yours? And once I was able to actually be honest about that, I was actually able to say that to you. And that was courageous, because oftentimes in our world, we don't want to offend people. We're colleagues, we're friends, all these different things. And there's so many different relationships. But even in the midst of the relationship, what is the truth of the heart? We met at that heart place, and so while it was me answering the phone, asking myself the question, really thinking about it, and not trying to take care of your feelings, right? And I think created a great place where I didn't have to, actually allowed us to go into a place of truth that I don't think I've been at with any of my other colleagues or friends that are white, because I don't think everyone can handle it or has the capacity. And so in that, I think you and I have really been asking the question of what now and how and where do we go from here? And while some of these questions cannot be answered in totality right now, I do believe there are little things we can do to begin to answer them, to start the process.
Yeah, I just agree so much with this idea that we haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
But we started a conversation, and there's a trust in being able to be honest with one another that I deeply appreciate. I'm so grateful that you were real with me about what was coming up for you and why you waited to call me back. Last week, we had a conversation about, so what do we feel like we can do? And at the end of this podcast, we usually invite the listeners to take on some challenge or benefit from some resource from one of the listeners. What you and I were realizing we would want more than anything else would be to encourage people to reach out to somebody across, differences of religion or ethnicity or belief, and actually create an opportunity to spend time together and get to know one another and enable our children to do that. Because we realize that even though, you and I are friends and colleagues, we wouldn't necessarily spend time together socially.
Right, right. There was a study my husband and I read where our first grader at that point was in preschool, and he was in a very mixed preschool. And we looked through the gate one day and we realized all the Black kids had found each other. And we said, how is it that all the Black kids are playing with each other and they're 3 and 4, and we haven't taught them about racial tensions and divides? And in the study, it said, basically, who do you associate with as parents? And it's plain out said, who's at your dinner tables? Is that our kids do not act out just what they see at school, but they become what they see at home. Do we have dinner together? Do we worship together? There's the Black church and the white church and all this. Do we come together and bring our children together to get to know who each other are? And so many of us, myself included, we stay with what is familiar and what is family. And the truth is that is not healing our country. And so there is a place where, Julie, you and I have talked about this, but where we have to intentionally, like we talk about intentionally raising our children, we also have to intentionally open up as adults our spaces and places to bring people who are not like us in, so that our children can see that we as adults are inclusive, that we just don't say it or read about it, but that we are it, that we have friends that look different, that sound different. We all just don't look alike, that we all don't just act alike, that there is not one dominating culture or race or class, but that we are human, that we are one species, that we are not the multitude of subgroups, but that we are human. And so when I think about those listening, and even just, what I'll contemplate later today is, what is it that you can do to pull humanity together? Because I will never, Julie, feel comfortable enough to just come as a Black woman to an event for you that is, around your culture and, whatever class, we have a class difference, a cultural difference as a Black woman. But as a human, is there a way for me to find a common thread between you and I that allows me to walk into uncomfortable rooms and uncomfortable spaces and say, I want to experience this? And this is what one of the books I'm reading, the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, is talking about, is that they are able to walk into spaces and places and deal with different religions because they are looking at the human spirit, not as the sectors we've broken ourselves out into.
Yeah. So I want to jump in because, as a result of that conversation you and I had last week, we said, okay, well, how can we start with ourselves and our family?
Yes.
And
jump right on it, Julie. You didn't wait.
So you and Franklin in your new ministry, you were having a service on Sunday, and I came with my husband, Chris, and my little guy, Jacob. And to be real, Ryan, who is 12 and a half, he didn't feel comfortable yet. Mostly, I think it was the religion. We're Jewish, and he's studying to have his bar mitzvah, and he just wasn't sure how he was going to feel about both being white in a Black church, but then also it being about Christianity.
Right.
We respected his rights to stay home. When we came back, though, interestingly, and we told him about it, I think he was a little bit sorry that he missed it and is thinking about coming with us next month in January. But I was really moved. It was an incredible experience. It was definitely one of those snapshot moments. When I think about living my epic life, I will think about what happened for me on Sunday. It was a beautiful service. There was this incredible song, literally had me in tears by the end. Mary, Did You Know? And, the song was about Mary and her child, Jesus. But for me, it just spoke to the way any mother feels when they are bringing a child into the world and hoping that they'll make a difference, and the ways in which that child ends up actually making a difference, not only in the world, but for their mother.
One of my heroes is Martin Luther King. And I studied him as a minister and as a person because he had the ability to bring together different races, different classes, and different religions, and to create space and place for them all to live in their truth, but yet become one. And so when you all came to the service on Sunday, it was courageous. There was no one else there that would move out of their comfort zone like that. And then there was a point where I saw the moment where it transcended our differences. Because again, back to that sync or that cadence or that rhythm in their life, is that there comes a place where we can all meet at our higher self. And in our higher self, we're all wanting the same things. That song talks about, Mary, did you know that your baby boy would give life to the nations? It's a song, and as mothers of sons,
right,
this is where we can meet. Because while I do think of the song as my savior, I also can't help but visualize my sons. And there are things like that that pierce through our differences and that connect us. And so that is the life experience that myself and my husband are trying to give to our children and to everyone that we are blessed to encounter, is that there is a rhythm, there is a cadence, there is something that is higher than our race, than our class, than our gender, that we are supposed to be meeting each other at. And that's humanity.
I think this is a beautiful place to end. And again, just want to reiterate to invite people listening that if there is a family or somebody that you know that you are connected to, but you realize that you haven't reached out to and you're afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, just want to maybe take this moment to make an intention to move past your comfort
Yes.
place of that universal humanity that you're so beautifully talking about right now, Jenjii, and create space for those connections. I'm so glad that I've done that and already feel enriched as a result. So the way that we end every podcast episode is with some acknowledgments, and I can start just to say which things are really staying with me from this conversation. And I know when I listen to it again, I will take even more from it. But I'm inspired by your intention about living out loud. We'll hold that as a metaphor for me as well as I continue to move forward with Mother's Quest. I love this idea of being in rhythm. You used it as a thread that weaved through how you show up with your children, how you pay attention to your own body and yourself, and then connecting it to community and even humanity. And then the last thing I think is, just being grounded and centered and in balance so that you can be of service and be able. Thank you so much for this time. I feel really appreciative of it and just really grateful.
Thank you, Julie. Julie, I really just want to acknowledge you for being courageous enough to dream big and to lay the tracks in order to get to that dream, and creating space and creating place and time to talk about things that matter to us as women, and women first and then mothers. I want to acknowledge your leadership as a mother and your family, because oftentimes, we talk about leadership, and to see you bring your family, your husband and your son to a place that was new and different and uncomfortable in some ways, and to see you all be fully present, it was great leadership. Just you as a mother impact your family. And I could definitely see that. And then I just want to acknowledge those and challenge those who are listening, is that we as women are great. We don't have to prove that to anyone but ourselves. And the way we prove that to ourselves is we take back our dreams, our life, our bodies, our hopes, and we go out there and we live out loud.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this encore presentation of my conversation with Jenjii Hysten. I hope this conversation has inspired you to live your epic life and possibly to create your own 1-Minute Mom Manifesto. If you want to follow along with the reflective prompts and the guest live videos, They're all waiting for you in the private Mother's Quest Facebook group. And if you create and share your manifesto with the hashtag before May 31st, you'll be entered into a drawing for some amazing prizes from some of my Mother's Quest members. Go to mothersquest.com/community to join the group and find all the prompts and all the things that you need to follow along.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, head over to mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and help us spread the word. I want to end with some words to light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.